mantra is that talent is equally distributed and opportunity is not, and we're trying to bring opportunity to the talent.
Hello, everybody, our listeners from around the globe. This is me, Ashish Fernando, and we are here for another amazing, interesting episode of EDU Unlocked, where we talk to inspirational leaders in higher ed, leaders who are not just changing the lives of students at their institution, but leaders who are inspirational in helping higher ed as an ecosystem progress further. And today we have with us one such inspirational and amazing person, Daphne Kis, who is the CEO and president at WorldQuant University. Daphne, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Before we get started, I'd love to give our listeners a little sneak peek into who Daphne is and what she's been up to in this amazing career of hers. Daphne is right now the president of WQU. She is a leader in global education, especially when it comes to technology. Data science comes to mind when you think of Daphne, and she has been orchestrating WQU. I always WQU and WGU.
Yeah, to
WGU is a
you, I know.
customer, like
Believe me.
always entertained. But WQU is the one amazing and unique thing that Daphne and the crew at WQU have been able to orchestrate is that they're offering a lot of online programs, especially in the financial engineering data science space. A lot of times, if not all, it's entirely free for the student. And that's amazing. We want to talk about that. But that just tells you the amount of push that WQU has in the world of affordable education, which is a big question mark today. 10,000 students across 150 countries. Is that right? Roughly?
Yes, it's more than that now, but it's about 140 countries, and we're at about 15,000 learners at any given time on the platform.
Amazing. Love it. Love it. And apart from that, Daphne is also, she's an advocate for entrepreneurship. She's an entrepreneur herself, leading the institution, very focused on women entrepreneurs, advisor to multiple companies, initiatives, the Quorum Initiative, Mindshift Capital. She's just, I don't know how you even, like, I'm sure when you wake up every day and that feeling of, oh my God, I'm making a difference with accessible education. That feeling, tell us about that when you wake up.
I would say yes, it is definitely a motivator, and it's reinforced by regularly having students write to us. We just got something today where students are commenting on just what opportunity the learning gave them and created for them. So, we get blessed all the time. So that feels really good,
That's
where
amazing.
again, people are just saying that the experience, the rigorous learning experience has created possibilities that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to consider. So yes, it's very satisfying.
It's
Um,
amazing.
and
It's like on Facebook when you get the likes and the hearts going up for you,
yes,
it's
yes.
like you for you y'all, it's like the blessings coming in. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yes, yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, it feels really great, and it feels we know it's important. And again, I think the idea that you're making something accessible that would not have otherwise been accessible to people is obviously very much the point of impact, and that uh is unique and is very, very satisfying. And we are work now to re-engage some of our graduates and have them come back. People want to help, and they want to give back. So we're actually in the process of figuring out how can we best turn our graduates into ambassadors, because of course the best students are those that are referred by others who've had the experience. So
100%. Yes, yes. And referrals also tell you a lot more. I mean, yes, it does great to
yes.
the pipeline, but it also tells you that you're doing a good job, right?
Mhm.
Like, yeah,
Yes.
referral is almost like a 10 on 10 net promoter score of like, yeah, I love this place. Yeah.
Yep. Yes. No, you're right. That's right. That's
Yeah,
exactly right. That
that's
it's very
fabulous.
valued. So. Mhm.
So before we get into that, and I have a lot of questions around that, personally, my life changed. I don't know if you know this, probably not, but my life changed when I was able to leave India, come to the US on a full ride for my MBA. So I
Yes.
got a full ride and it just transformed everything. I decided to dedicate my life to education as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's amazing when you can get high quality US education at zero cost. Like, yeah,
Mhm. Yep.
nothing like it.
No, it's pretty
And
good.
we'll,
It's a pretty good value proposition, yes.
yes. Before we get into that, Daphne, what inspires you to this career that you chose for yourself to lead in higher ed?
So I had the good fortune a very long time ago. I went and I guess I chose it to a college where a lot of work was done independent through independent study and self-paced learning and creating your own curriculum and all of that. And there's a mantra in the venture world, of course, like make mistakes and then beg for forgiveness. And I think that that was something I learned early on in my education was that you could take the risks and then you would,
Mm,
figure it out, right? One step at a time. So I think is one thing. And then I think the other is that I really value the journey. I am less focused on, I mean, obviously want economic security and, all that comes with that, et cetera. But I think have been uh, driven by what engages me and keeps me engaged. So it's not it's not a means to an end per se. Certainly there are times in my life and, going back to school after 10 years in the workforce and getting an MBA, for example, and that was really, this is a tool. Okay. This is a
mm,
tool that gives you access. This is a, et cetera. So,
mm.
I think again, I value the journey as much as the outcomes. So, and I
That's
think that's led me a lot into the decisions I've made. And I think that creates a world in which opportunities that you make yourself open to present themselves. Whereas and again, I'm not saying one shouldn't be laser focused, but you have to leave space for the serendipity and what happens, right? That's sort of where my faith lies, is believing in the universe sort of serves it up, but you have to recognize it.
Yeah, and be fluid about it. Yeah,
Right.
that's amazing. Yeah, a lot of people get stuck in the rut of this is the one thing I want to do in life, and this is the only thing I'm going to do in life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
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 it's too late.
inevitably people, it's rare, I think, the person who does that and then does it as effectively as they intended to. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think I mean, clearly you're an educator, and you're building a university that's providing education. And you said as a passing comment that that MBA for you was a tool. And so you believe strongly, and I do for sure, but you believe in the value of a degree today. Like there's a
Um,
lot of this talk around, right?
yes,
Stackable credits
yes,
and all of.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe in both, all right. I think that uh, there are strengths and weaknesses to the degree. The degree has been used as a proxy for knowledge and capabilities, right? And I think that I don't care what the structure is per se, but I think that that is a measure that we want, right? We want to be able to say that a credential, whatever it is a testimony to knowledge that someone has acquired. Um, but equally importantly, the thing that is harder to capture is that it suggests that you have the capacity and the capability for more, right? So, I have two daughters. I'm always like, get hired on get hired on your capabilities, right? This is sort of again with women entrepreneurs, it tends to be, there's a mantra around that women get hired on what they've already done and men get hired on their potential, which is really true and certainly is very true in the world of venture and it's
Yeah,
just
and
true. All
yeah.
right, it's
Yeah.
not. And so again, how do you find that balance where whatever the degree or the credential is, serves as a representation of knowledge acquired, but ideally also as potential, right? That it suggests that you're capable of more.
Mm.
If offered, you would take the next step. And what is that, right? When I went to get an MBA, honestly, I had been in the workforce for 10 years, and I got it at a time when it was really like painfully obvious that you were basically learning a vocabulary. And again, having had years of work experience, that I was learning a vocabulary and getting the credential. All right.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
in those days, it's a little vaguer now, I think, but in those days, it was like, you got it, you didn't have it, you have it, and now your income potential has, quadrupled or 10x or whatever it might be. But that was really very, very explicit, sort of cause and effect. So that
Absolutely.
for me was a big motivator, as I wanted to start a family, etc. And this was, and again, also a vocabulary that was being acquired. So it's sort of saying, yes, I know this vocabulary. I understand, whether it's in the finance or marketing or whatever it might be, that you've bought into that and share that, glossary of ideas and concepts and presentation, etc. So I think that's part of its value.
Mm,
But
amazing.
again, it's
Yeah.
a potential, ideally, right? Like, because you have that glossary, because you have those tools, it suggests a capability of more.
Absolutely. It suggests the capability to learn, right? Like that's like when
Exactly.
I hire, especially like that's one thing I look for. Yeah, the degree, great, but it's not the fundamentals that like let's say I see someone with an MBA that oh yeah, they're going to be great at marketing finance. No, but they're going to be good at the rigor of doing that for 2 years and learning and being able to clear their exams and hopefully that will translate into, doing tasks at work, right? Like
Yes,
that's a
yes.
big
I
part of
mean,
it.
I've said this many times in various, public settings, that in terms of the university and our students, that if I'm an employer, I actually am more interested, I would be more interested in hiring those who have the tenacity and the endurance to get through a program in a less than,
Hmm.
it's not a coddled environment. It's an online, rigorous, and online learning is improving and we're improving it all the time, and the user experience is constantly being elevated. But the reality is you're not in person. It's not the norm. It's not. And so those people who can get through it and express that commitment are, to your point, likely lifelong learners because they've had to go after it and they win. And those are the kind of employees you want, right? People who are
Yes.
curious. They're going to keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. And that, again, I think that ultimately that curiosity is what, there isn't a lifelong learner, as it were, who's not curious. It's like those things go together. And so the ability to use that positively in the workforce or anything you do, I think is really the sort of, it's the hook. That's what
It's
the
the
essence.
absolutely, I cannot agree more. Absolutely. And in that realm of education and degrees, Daphne, how do you think of online? Because there's, initially, like when MOOCs and everything started, there was this big hype, and then we sort of had that curve going down. And now it's picking up again. Like we work with a few online institutions, like WGU is one, and even you all have a big number. Um, do you think it will, I mean, in terms of scale, it does great, right? It's you can scale online so fast, but
Yeah,
in terms of the stickiness, completion rates, graduation
sure.
rates, where do you see that moving?
Right. So a couple of caveats. I mean, for us at WorldQuant University, our mantra is that talent is equally distributed and opportunity is not, and we're trying to bring opportunity to the talent. So implicit
Well
in that
said.
statement is discovery. Okay.
Hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we create it with a wide funnel so that people can try and see if this is right for them. Very much so in the master's, right? It's a 2-year program, it's a big commitment. And do you have the requisite skills? So there's a couple of things. Surely there's a fall off that happens as people say, oh, this is not for me, or if it's one of their early experiences in online learning. Perhaps they don't like that environment, or they find that it doesn't work for them, whatever it might be. So there is a fall off. And after that sort of two-course fall off, then it's very sticky. Because again, people have the skills and they have the motivation to get through it. So I think, some of the problem is in the metrics and how they're handled, right? As much as it is anything else. I think that in the years that I've been doing WorldQuant University, and started it in 2015. So here obviously the world of online learning has just evolved so much, as has just education and technology that drives all of this. So I will tell you that, when we went to get our initial accreditation, and the accreditor sitting, having your on-site and this and that, and they're, it's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, how does this Zoom thing work? Okay.
Yeah.
And well, really, does it real? I mean, is that enough? Is it sticky enough? Is it engaging enough? Is it what? And that was just before COVID. And then COVID happens, and suddenly, like, we're getting calls of like, can you tell us how this works?
The tone changed
So
completely
completely. So
post-COVID.
certainly, I mean, there
Yeah,
are no silver linings to the
sure.
COVID journey that the planet went through.
Yes.
But there, as we know, in every sector, it has changed how people view what's possible. And that's come out from necessity. So I think that it's really, there was a huge tipping point in terms of online learning and the value that it can bring. Now, having said that, online learning is just online learning. So the question is, how do you create an environment that doesn't pretend to replicate real life, but aims to create a rich environment, a learning journey that's clear and well said, stated, and explicit. And in that, also, for our perspective, a lot of in our masters, particularly, we demand a lot of collaborative work. Okay. So, of course, nobody goes into it going, yeah, I can't wait to do this with a team. Most people just don't do that. But it
Yes,
is when people rank it after, in excess of 90% say what a valuable part of their learning journey it was.
that was
So
all.
again, what does that collaborative work do? It gives the opportunity for people to interact with each other, to create a shared product. In our case, because we're so geographically diverse, you have students in one part of the world collaborating with someone in another part of the world. Originally, when we set it up, we tried to, segment people in their time zones, and people complained. Okay, I'm working with the same people all the time. I understand there's students, I'm in Senegal. I know there are people in Singapore. So again, the cross-cultural piece has been incredibly important. And the feedback we got is people, there are real meaningful relationships that have come through this, whether these people ever see each other again or not. All right. Now
Yeah,
we know that in real life, that's something that you aim for, right? In a campus, you aim for so how do we again not replicate, you can't replicate the experience, but you can aim for those values and those things that enrich the experience. And I think that contributes to stickiness in a big, big way. So community is really important. Okay. Early on, we would, launch things, and then we'd ask for people's, forgiveness and patience. Okay. Now, obviously, what was implicit in that was you're getting it for free. So be patient. Okay.
yeah,
So again, if somebody's paying, if you're paying the huge amounts of money that people are paying to get education, that you can see how the customer service mentality kicks in, where it's like your value is constantly being measured.
sure.
Right? So
That,
it's a challenge of free. Free, you have to come over that. The only way to get over the challenge of free is to be really good.
I love what you said, because that was going to be my question. A lot of times, yeah, free doesn't equal serious,
Right,
right?
exactly. Or you get what you pay for view of the world.
Also, yeah,
Right. And so rigor and offering rigorous programs and really, good instructional design and instructors. We have instructors. They're an incredible, cross-cultural team of people, of 20 people who are supporting students through this journey. And so all of that humanizes the experience, gives people a sense of community, all of which contributes to motivation, right? as we know. So again, and it's ironic because what do people say, in a real life setting, right?
Hmm.
The complaints of isolation and depression and time management and that just exists, all right, whether you have a campus center to go to or not.
Or not.
So,
Oh,
right,
absolutely.
so that's not, so again, how do we engage a population and create a shared experience? And that is, people value that. Okay, so what we found is that a lot of our, early on, there was sort of the people who took the data science and then the people who took the master's program. The cross-pollination, it's gone up hugely, all
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
In fact, we just this week have launched our foundational AI lab and are using computer vision for deep learning as the sort of modality that we're using to teach, because again, it's accessible in a way and makes, pretty advanced learning accessible to people. That's good curricular design. That's true in the real world. If it's crummy in the real world, it can be crummy online, right? So
And
again,
yeah,
question is what are you providing and what's the value that you're giving? All right. And again,
yeah.
time is really important to people, and you don't want to waste people's time.
Yeah. And also with the kind of field you're going after, like with data science and machine learning, things are changing on a day-to-day basis. So
Yes,
even when you say, yeah, our focus is make the curriculum come close to match what's happening in the real world, a lot of institutions, especially the traditional ones, rightly so, cannot move that
that's right.
fast at
Right.
that pace,
That's
right?
right, right. And
So
that's why technology, I mean, again, this is where technology is not, it's not the replacement. It makes the enrichment possible. All right.
yeah.
If it's well used. All right. And then could say the same thing about AI, right? AI, on the one hand, everybody talks about sort of the displacement, but it's like, okay, so then what are people going to do
Hmm.
instead, right? Whole other separate discussion. But again, on the other hand, AI, and certainly in education, affords the opportunity, which I've been chasing forever, which is more personalized, customized learning, right?
Absolutely.
Which
Yeah.
is, is
I
not
read
time-based, but
yeah,
it's comprehension-based, right?
it's
So you advance
comprehension
as you
based.
demonstrate proficiency. That's how you move forward. And providing you with the tools to demonstrate, to gain and then demonstrate the proficiency can be highly customized. Right.
Absolutely.
Again,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't say, I don't know of any example that exists yet but that is the promise. Okay.
That is the problem.
And
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
ask about higher education, the question is, will higher education institutions be able to embrace that in a way that actually enhances their value, perceived value to prospective students? And I think the jury's out, but that's,
Yeah. The jury's I feel yeah, I feel we're making steps towards that. So
yes, yes.
I'm very passionate about things like AI tutors. Like there's like companies like Google have been trying to work on that for the last 5 years.
Yes.
Because we're a Google EDU startup, so we got some
Hmm.
funding from them early on, and that's when I got exposed to those parts.
Hmm.
Even though I'm focused on enrollment, for me, in the end, enrollment is just you're just getting a piece of paper that says I have a degree, right? But in the end, why do students take it? Why do learners do that? They do that because they want to build a successful career. So
Yes.
I do have, one hand in how are students learning, how are they graduating, and are they meeting the needs of the employer?
Right.
There's a lot that goes on there.
Yes.
And I feel with online institutions, there's a lot of push towards skill matching with employers,
Yes.
right? And I'm seeing that with WGU and some of these others as
Sure.
well,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right?
What are the outcomes? All right.
Yeah.
All right. What is the inventory of skills that you can say this piece of paper captures, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, I'm having said that, I'm going to push back a little bit and
Okay.
also say that I think that because the skill set is changing so rapidly, that it's actually sort of the critical thinking behind it that is actually the most persistent, set of skills and tools that will actually help someone remain agile, stay agile, so that as new things come to pass, you're not dependent on, the either the institution to deliver it to you, but have the means to learn.
To learn. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And that I think is, I was recently asked by someone, well, if you were, I have a kid, they're going to college, they're kind of asking my advice, what to study. And my answer was philosophy. Okay. Because again, this was in a privileged
Yeah.
setting where someone has the,
Sure.
so it's almost like a full circle of going back to those things that are going, that, now we see because everything is so tactical and skill-based, literal, that we're missing a bigger picture. All right. Like AI is terrific, but again, if you don't build, how do you know if how do you know? Right. So you want to have some of, it's sort of, it's a global problem. And certainly in our country, it's a national problem of, what's the source? How do I know? How do I validate it? What makes it, all right? And if you don't have the tools to ask those questions,
Yeah.
then you're actually like, a victim of what someone, whatever, I mean, and no, nothing, not begrudgingly to Google, but what they deliver you, which is their truth. Okay.
That exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
now you're trained on Google, but you don't, it's sort of like, but if you want to go work for AWS, because that's who's got the jobs in town. I mean, surely some of these skills are transferable,
Transfer. Yeah.
but that's the danger, that they become so narrow that you lose the agility to have more choices.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
100%.
So,
But in the 21st century, I mean, you say data science is the 21st century sociology. So,
yes, I,
uh,
I, I believe that. I do. It's a
it is,
means to
especially.
understanding, and it's a tool to do that, right?
Yeah, I love it. I dig data big time.
Yeah.
And I feel like yeah, people interchangeably use machine learning, AI, and data science sometimes, but the core to everything is understanding the science behind the data. It's the core to understanding how a machine learning algorithm learns from training data, and data
Yes.
science becomes a core. Is that the rationale behind focusing there?
Well, part of what the focus came honestly from our founder, who, is a quant, all right? So, um, um, uh, that's the way he views the world. So it's very data driven, it's very quantitative. So part of why and he himself was the beneficiary of the American dream, and, so super smart and got these opportunities to learn and to take his successes and translate them in the marketplace to huge, financial and impact success. So so that's really part of it. I'm going to
Hmm.
push back a little bit, just to be whatever provocative. I
Yeah,
agree with
please.
you that, but again, I think that when we lose an understanding of data as a tool, all right, it is the means to understanding something. The answers are not in the data. Okay, the data is just data. All right. So again, certainly you can create algorithms, but those
Mhm.
algorithms are based on ideally based on human insights and human understanding that then get applied to data to better understand. But I feel actually more than ever, frankly, that we really need to caution against data being the answer to everything. Because again, if we don't bring our understanding to it, and that's part of what's so extraordinary about AI ultimately, right? And so, it's a huge, paradigm shift in how we're going to be thinking, because it does learn, okay, and
Yeah.
learns itself. And so that's going to be the next generation of how this stuff plays out. But again, and there, of course, the issue is, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good, well thought, well constructed data, again, the bias in data, all those issues, if those aren't addressed, then yeah, it's learn, it's like I don't know what would be a good analogy, like somebody there's a good way to walk down the street that's going to be good for your body and good for, all right. But just because you taught to do it a certain way doesn't mean it's the best for your way
Oh,
to, right.
absolutely. Yeah.
So again, I think we want not to over index on the data, all right, and think it's going to give us all the answers, because again, it's just data. It's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely. I fully agree. I mean, we build a lot of machine learning models in-house. We have
Yeah,
US patents on some. I always we spend a lot of time, my CTO, also another Ashish, we spend a lot of time thinking not about the bias in machine learning models and the bias in machine data, but also the bias in human logic. So
yeah,
like we'll always, push our customers to think more about you say, yeah, but the machine is biased, and yeah, but we humans are so biased when we make decisions on which student to admit and what to do within an institution and what works. There's so much personal bias, human bias
exactly.
in
Right.
there.
And if
And
the answer is somewhere in the middle, we know, all right?
yeah,
The
right.
answer is to have the data inform what I and to have the self-critical view to understand the bias that you
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah,
That's without
absolutely. It
that, yeah,
has to
we're
be a
all lost.
combination.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's fantastic. Yeah. So, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is I was very curious about the free education model, right? So, I mean, especially in startup world, we're always thinking about sustainability, right? And how sustainable is that free model, and how are you thinking about it, like, 5 or 10 years down the line?
sure. So I don't know the exact answer to that. I can say we've had I like to say that Igor Tolchinsky, that our founder, it's been very patient capital, truly, right? It's
Hmm.
very patient capital. And now the question is, how do we ensure the sustainability and growth, ideally, of the organization? So I think what underneath. Yes, we're a university. Yes, we provide education. Yes, we provide degrees. But what underneath that is a lot of serious technology. Okay. And so that technology makes it possible for us over time to provide more customized solutions to particular populations. All right. For which, and again, we run a very efficient, low cost operation. The cost of delivery is low,
Is low.
right?
Mhm.
It's not right. So it's not that we're a nonprofit, we're a not for profit. And that means that, again, we're not talking about the margin that somebody and people eating into it along the way. And so the opportunity and to be as candid as possible, we are and working on finding funding partners to help us grow. Because what we've built is very robust technology, very efficient delivery of very high quality content. And it creates an opportunity, and some of this is AI and otherwise, to customize some of that content for particular groups and particular populations, right? Whether it's additional knowledge, and then we're also really working hard on sort of leveraging the knowledge graph to
Mm.
modular, make the content modular in a way that it can be reconstructed and repurposed depending on the use case, right? So for example, in the data science program, it's not trivial, but it's very achievable to create the work on the same outcomes and same concepts, but perhaps take different projects, all right? Ask different questions. So if now our default is to ask about whatever, the housing crisis in Mexico City, you could just as easily come to those concepts by creating some other construct that was particularly relevant to whatever the segment is, right? So if you're in a certain industrial, how do you come to some of these answers with using a different, project, as it were, but again, with similar learning outcomes. So again, it's sort
Mm.
of the ability, and that's technology. That's about the technology and the underlying
Absolutely.
technology. So
Mm.
and that over time, I mean, you should never say never, but it is why we believe that the content and the experience can and should remain free to the learners. Because, and to your point, we're doing a lot of work in Sub-Saharan Africa now, where about a third of our students are. And,
Right.
you're talking about obviously huge amount of growth and huge, And, much of the continent is talking about AI and being AI hubs and so on. So again, there's a certain set of references there. How do you go after the outcomes and
Hmm.
the expert list of expertise that you're aiming for, but you get to it in a different way and create relevance for that set of users, for example, all right? Or how do you add on additional curriculum if people have developed a certain level of content and are delivering that, and we're sort of the next step beyond that. So those are all opportunities that would, as well as grants and private foundations and people who are share the mission and believe in the mission. So those are all areas of partnership that is very central to what we're thinking about right now.
Amazing. Hmm.
And again, we're all doing that as the tectonic plates are shifting, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Around all of this. So,
all of this. Yeah,
oh,
especially technology. Yeah, it's
yeah.
just shifting so much. And
And education and what people, funders, etc., think about what are the skills, all right? I
oh yeah.
mean, somebody will
Hmm.
tell you this year something very different than they told you last year. Okay, so where do you put the stake and I think that for people who care about education, whether it's foundations or granting organizations, that um and so far I've seen that everyone is sort of asking their own set of questions, right? What is the most effective funding mechanisms? Where should the energy get spent? All right. How do you take previous learnings and apply them now to new opportunities to educate and upskill, I think is still a really big part of this conversation, that people have skills. And how do you not make people irrelevant, but take
Yeah,
and leverage? I mean, there's so much domain expertise that people have, but they need to find new domains and a new skill set that supports the knowledge that they have. So
that's true.
those are
Yeah.
the challenges.
Mm.
Again, we're not unique in that sense, but I think that that is the model for the moment, of how we were, how we're thinking about how to advance all this. So,
Understood. Understood.
yeah.
And one important question after, talking to you about the way it's delivered, how passionate you are, the team is, with all these shifts, how are you actually able to measure success? Because there's a lot of levers that keep moving all the time, right?
Yes, yeah. I
Uh,
mean, we have a curriculum and it's a robust, but as certainly, I mean, one of the things to your earlier point,
mhm.
which is what, as we know, is one of the challenges in brick and mortar institutions, is that you've developed a curriculum and then everybody gets really attached to it and it's really hard to make changes, right?
Yeah,
It's which is very different than building, and I think this is, one of the values of the sort of digital world we live in, which is this appreciation that it's iterative. Okay.
hmm.
And that, that standing still is losing, right? And
Well
so
said. Yeah.
that's true about learning as well, right? And so the opportunity, what online, those infrastructures allow you to do is to regularly update and advance what you're doing, right? And to innovate on it. So I think that's the opportunity. But it continues to be a challenge, no question about it. No question. I mean,
Understood.
yeah, yeah, it's interesting. It's again, I think, and a lot of stuff is trial and error, as we know, right? You have to try it and
Oh,
see how.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
to your question about measurements, again, with constant, whether it's quizzing, assessment is very much built into it to ensure that the expected proficiency is achieved so that people can advance and move forward. And that is, we expect a high grade from people, but again, particularly in the masters, to advance. So when the product, we're confident the human being with the knowledge, by the time they're done, they actually have that body of knowledge and we're confident that they've achieved it. Again, obviously within that, they're the brilliant students and they're those who, had to work extra hard to get to that point of
Yeah.
completion. So,
Absolutely. I mean, with all of this, I rarely say institutions are entrepreneurial, but you and WQU, y'all are. I mean, this is
Yeah,
y'all are entrepreneurial. Y'all are always thinking of how to
right,
advance. It's not just about, hey, it's working well, to just keep it running, keep the engines humming. I feel
mhm,
like you're always focused on it's okay. We can cannibalize our own curriculum with the new curriculum because that's what the world needs.
right. And
Um,
are now, the whole question, I'd be interested in your point of view, the jury's out on the whole sort of stackable
Stackable credits. Yeah.
credits, and we're exploring that as well. One other point, just again, that's just at the periphery related, is that and right recently, when we started to do this very recently, is that in our master's program, we now are issuing a badge, a credential, after completing the first two courses. Because the other challenge about all of this, as we know, in brick and mortar and traditional university settings, you can go to college for, 3.4 years, but if you don't get to four, it's as if you never, you're a
Zero.
dropout,
Yeah. Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Those
So,
credits never add up.
so,
Yeah.
right. So how do
Yes.
you acknowledge the interim learning that happens? All right. So if I say that those, there is some subset that are qualified to go all the way, but how do you recognize all the people who worked really hard and have now this body of knowledge? Okay. So in some sense, that's sort of I guess, a proxy in a way, or parodies the whole stackable idea, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Where you've again, you are signing up. You got to have your official transcript. You have to have the grades. You have to, but after two courses, we're going to give you it's a degree. We're going to give you the credits that you deserve because you did this. All right.
Yes.
And I
Absolutely.
think that's a real challenge in higher education as well.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And there has to be a way to acknowledge partial completion,
Partial
right? The
skills,
definition of
skills gained.
completion,
Yeah.
skills gained.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
Right.
right.
It could also be an incomplete task. So an incomplete program, incomplete job. Like, okay, hey, I worked at this firm for 6 to 8 months. Okay, gained some skills there. That should
Exactly.
be
How do
that.
you, right, right. And in a world in which that's what's valued, it has to be captured,
Yes.
right? I
I
mean,
would love to, at some point. So we've been dabbling like little skunk works on the side, right? Because
yes.
our machine learning teams are always they're hungry to do more. So we've been doing some work with skills on the side. And one of the things that we've been discovering, Daphne, over time is there's a way for us to stack skills. Let's say we figure out, right, how do you pick skills out of like a half-complete program from the curriculum that they've completed, or a job based on the company, the type of role, the title, everything. The one place where we kind of get stuck, and I'd love to show you how that model kind of behaves, right? Because you're into this yourself. Yeah, is to gauge non-verifiable skills, right? Like
Yes,
the motivation to learn, like
right,
which are such an important piece of being a
right.
successful employee.
Yes,
And yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, so our
Well,
machine
yeah,
learning
so
model,
I
yeah,
mean, people call it the soft skills. I mean, we
soft
refer
skills,
to
yeah,
them as the durable skills, actually, because
that's
those
a
are,
good term. Yeah,
yeah.
durable
So
skills.
how
Yeah.
do you develop those durable skills? So that
And how do
goes
you
back a little
verify
bit
them?
to how do you verify them? So one of the things
Yeah.
we've done in our collaborative group work is that students are evaluating each other peer to peer. Okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
part of a grade is, were you a team player? All right. How did you express that? Did you, again, this is, but yes, it's a really important issue. It's a really, really important issue because it is, it is to our earlier points of, being adaptive, being able to shift from this to this, to, have the agility to keep going. That is a valued skill. And so,
Hmm.
it's how do you measure it? It only gets expressed experientially, right? It's not, you can't objectify it in some way.
No,
Very
yeah.
hard to objectify.
Uh-huh.
And
Yes.
that is the challenge. So we've tried hard,
That's
again,
interesting.
one of the things that in terms of earlier point too, that we really have valued is the peer-to-peer learning. Okay.
Hmm.
If you think about it in a university, a bunch of students sitting there listening to a lecturer, all right. Well, I know, I mean, and what study groups in a sense are sort of the closest to
Yeah.
that, but
Oh, yeah,
that's
yeah.
really informal, all right? It's very, some people are shy and they don't participate, so their ability, so again, peer-to-peer, and this is one of the things we've noticed, you have a cohort of people who are coming with all sorts of different backgrounds and a huge body of knowledge. How does that make its way into the shared collaboration and the individual success and progression through the program? And it continues to be a challenge, but I
Yeah, but
totally agree with you. It's profoundly important.
yeah,
It
and
is.
but it's incredible though that you found a way to still measure that to some extent. Like peer to peer would be great, and the fact that you're doing it in an online setup is like even more fascinating to me that we're able to pull that off. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. No, it's
yeah,
again, and there have to be new ways to do that over time.
yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been very insightful. Is there something I have not asked you about?
go for out. No, 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 I
What's
can't think. I mean, we're very, I mean, again, I think it's an ongoing discussion, and I think that's part of the point is
yeah,
to always be open to that. And I think the universities, the colleges in the country, I mean, we have a nation of thousands of universities and colleges and so on, and certainly globally. Um, Everyone is facing the same challenge in a sense, or similar challenges, except for the most prestigious of those institutions. They have their different challenges, but I think that the open dialogue around it and the willingness to innovate is a huge and critical part of what is going to make it happen, right? I mean, if technology has taught us anything, right? It's that it's constantly changing. And, and that the greatest change is probably the rate of change. And we need to be, if you can't buy into that, bye, good luck. I mean,
and
it's just sort of inevitable, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah. So, yeah, it's,
that's a very
again,
decisive, that's a very decisive way to kind of put a blue ribbon on this. Absolutely.
good.
I
Well, it's a
appreciate that.
pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I always ask this one question,
Yes.
just as a way to for students, like we have some students who are listeners, is the why WQU and no other school? For me, the answer is clear, but we'd love to hear it from the presidents.
Why one should you go to WQU versus
WQU
someplace else?
versus
Um,
someplace else. Yeah.
well, I would never, I think all of it is additive, all right? So I would not, I mean, obviously, I think the opportunity to explore and see whether something is well suited to you. Unfortunately, and this is, we could go to length on this topic, of course, but part of why we've become so narrow, all right, or everybody wants to have a business degree, even though, that's not really going to help us
Yeah.
to be innovative and advance as a society, is because we've
Mhm.
made it too high risk to explore, all right, and to discover what you're capable of and so,
Yes.
to me, that's part of what's so rewarding. I mean, I'm not trying to, I don't want people to sign up to, we want people to be successful. So I don't, if you don't think you can do it, don't sign up because,
Don't sign up.
right,
Yeah.
because, again, we're not trying to produce failures, as it were, and make people feel worse about themselves. That's not the goal. But
No,
the
yeah.
goal is to give people the opportunity to, in a less risky way, essentially,
Yes.
discover if this is a capacity they have and a willingness that they have, and to experience that. And to me, that's the point. Okay.
Yeah, I love it. And
The,
that's yeah, that's
the
absolutely
alternative
what
is too,
yeah.
how can you make that work? Okay. And
Yes, absolutely.
so,
Yes, that's what was coming to my mind is, low risk access to opportunity, but also access to the latest in-demand skills.
yes,
I think
yeah,
that's what comes to mind rather than spending 60 grand a year going to a traditional school where I learned it. They say fundamentals of machine learning, and it's like a course from the archives, you
yes,
know.
right,
Uh,
right, right.
but But that's what I feel like y'all are really successful at building, and I'm pretty sure it's really hard work to be able to
Really hard work.
constantly be on that cutting edge.
That's what did somebody, we run when we in the master's program, when a cohort graduates, we do like a Zoom, party for everybody
Yeah.
to just, just have a moment of like mutual recognition and, and we ask people questions. What was the hardest part? And someone, I'm having a moment, but one of the students said, I learned that free is not cheap. Okay. Because you're taking a lot of time and it is a commitment, all
It
right? And
is, yeah.
it doesn't mean that, oh
Free
yeah,
is
it's
not cheap.
easy
Yeah,
because
well
it's
said.
free. That doesn't align necessarily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's profound. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty
So
good. All right, awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much,
Be
Daphne,
well.
for
All
joining
right.
us. And thank you to all our listeners for joining another episode of Edu Unlocked with me, Ashish, and our guest for today, Daphne Kis from WQU, World Quant University. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Be well. Bye-bye.